Yes, sir.
I have a question about education and changes that are available.
Okay, great.
I'm a big proponent of like pay for performance for teachers, like school vouchers, things like that, because our public education in South Carolina is pretty pitiful. I'm from Hilton Head Island, and I've seen neighboring Jasper County, and it's sad. I mean, what can we do to break up? Because I feel like the teachers union in South Carolina has stopped so much education reform. Like, what are you going to do to like stand up for school vouchers? Or do you support that?
I do. And I appreciate the question. There's a lot of things. Number one, I have a little bit of problem with merit pay based on performance, because things like English as a second language have become such a burden on certain schools that under No Child Left Behind, they're still counting them in the statistics and the rankings. However, they are giving a different set of factors to deal with, if you will. And so I do have a little bit of concern of using that totally. We got to have some barometer, but we have some schools, like the more rural areas, like Saluda County, for example, have such an influx of illegal aliens that are in those public schools, and we're still gauging them all the same. So I got a concern with that. But number one, there's got to be discipline back in the public school. The teacher ought to be the authoritarian figure, and he or she ought to have total authority to remove a student if they're continuing to struggle. We as taxpayers, or soon-to-be taxpayers, have got to fund alternative schools, charter schools, schools like the Will Gray and the John Della Howe. I'm probably the only legislator who's gone and visited those schools. I'm probably the only one that's substitute taught for 4 years going to keep a paycheck, trying to find solutions to the problems. And so we've got some good things out there. Will Gray and John Della Howe turn their lives around. I don't know if you're familiar with them. One of them, you wake up to Rebel League, National Guard runs it. The other one, you do things like equestrian. They learn to plant a garden. They do all kinds of different things, but it keeps them in school. It sparks their interest. It gets them involved. We're losing them through the customary way of educating. We have a huge dropout rate in this state, so we've got to do something to change that. Number one, we ought to move the age that you can drop out from 17 to 18. Number two, we ought to say, you know what? If you don't have a job and you drop out of school, you lose your driver's license. And there has to be a carrot or a stick. Problem is, in government, we reward bad behavior. It's called aid to independent mothers. The more babies you have, the more kids you have, the more money you get. The reward, we have de-incentivized staying together as a couple. The intention may have been very good, Lyndon Johnson said, although I don't think it was. But what he did was, when he passed that bill, was he encouraged the father to leave. And so government encouraged that. Instead of encouraging people to live inside their means, we continue to give out more social programs as a reward for bad behavior. And we're not doing anything to break the cycle because it's politically incorrect. Because some other candidate wants to make sure to get you on tape saying something that could harm you in the next election instead of worrying about their own election. And that's where we're at. And so nobody wants to say, we got to penalize people that keep making bad decisions. Nobody wants to say, guess what? A student in the school setting that we can't get their parent to come to a parent-teacher conference meeting, we got to do something. We got to say, you know what, parent, if you don't attend, bam, we're going to take your benefits. No other politician will talk about that, because when they talk to you or when they talk to anybody else, they talk in general terms. I'm for lower taxes. I'm for better education. We all are. Give me specifics. Tell me what you're going to do. Where are you going to cut? What are you going to fund? What are you going to do to fix education? Yeah, we'll spend more money on it. All of us are going to be about the same. Give me details. Pin them down. Ask them. Because that's what you got to find out. And none of them want to talk about things that may politically offend a certain group. I can tell you, I'm not running for governor just to get 4 years to serve. If I can't make a substantive difference, then I got no reason to do it. There's a multitude of things that I could do. And so I'm going to fight for things like that. I actually put a bill in when I was in the Senate to do things like that. I went and fought year after year to try to get kids to stay in school, to try to take their driver's license, to try to have 2 diplomas. We shouldn't just have a college prep diploma. Not everybody's like you. Not everybody has the talents to get to college. Some of them may have the talents, but they may not have the drive or the encouragement from their parents. So start a second diploma, a workforce diploma, so that they're ready, prepared to go right into a job right out of high school. But teach them different skills. Don't have them taking classes that they're sitting there absolutely having no idea what's going on or no interest, and we're just as taxpayers funding it where we're getting nothing out of it. And so we've got to break that cycle again. So I hope that we'll start taking up real issues. But again, most folks are concerned about making one group mad or the other. But I also support any type. For me, it's kind of like energy. I support anything. Anything that takes our dependence off another country. We don't want to continue to support countries that don't like us. We don't want our money going there. Same thing with education. I'm willing to try a multitude of different things right now because what we're doing is not getting us to where we want to go. I don't know if y'all remember Team South Carolina, but it used to be there on bumper stickers on cars. There was a theme, Team South Carolina, where people had pride in their state. I can tell you, if I happen to take over in the next year and a half, I've already got a former governor who led the state and actually led the nation in job creation. We were #1 in job creation under this governor. He's already committed to come back and run commerce for me if I were to have to take over. Hopefully I can convince him to serve 4 years after that as well. But what we've got to do is we've got to do a Carroll Campbell approach. And a lot of people are going to tell you the Carroll Campbell approach. Problem is they don't know what the Carroll Campbell approach is. They're going to tell you we're going to do just what Carroll Campbell did to get business in. They have no idea what he did. I can tell you what he did. It wasn't just about incentives. It just wasn't about money. Carroll Campbell sat at a table, and when he was at that table, and they're going to start using this in their speech because they're going to study what I tell you. When they sat there, whoever the person was, they reassured them through every facet of government. If they had concerns about water, there was somebody from there in the water department. Guarantee them they were going to maintain that rate, and they were always going to have enough water. If they were worried about power, they had Santee Cooper, or Duke, or SCG there. Guarantee them they weren't going to have brownouts. They were going to have a fair and competitive rate for what they may pay in other states. If they were worried about building permits, they'd have somebody from the city and county there guaranteeing them that they would expedite those permits and get them going immediately, which is what they did with BMW. And so it's a multitude. As a business person, you realize it's not one thing. It's a lot of things that you're looking at when you're thinking about bringing your company to a certain state or growing the current businesses we have in South Carolina. Sure, we want to do something to incentivize them. If I were governor, I'd ask for a $100 million bond bill and immediately bond to try to give them some incentives to go out and encourage business to come to South Carolina. Furthermore, we need a port potential in South Carolina, an intermodal port. I went and met when the governor nor the Secretary of Commerce could go to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, not on the taxpayer dime. I didn't use the taxpayer dime. I went without using taxpayer funds and represented the state of South Carolina when we weren't going to have the governor or the Secretary of Commerce there. And I was sitting at the table with Jocelyn, and we had a cordial meeting, and they kept asking, what are we going to give them? Will we give them a road spur? Will we give them rail? Will we give them water and sewer? Will we give them access to the interstate? And I said, okay, we're committed. I've got the people here from Orangeburg City and County. I can tell you as a state we're committed. But tell me, are you committed? Tell me when you're going to turn some dirt. Tell me when you're going to create a job. Because if you're not, don't keep holding South Carolina up. We got to go elsewhere. With that, I appreciate a few minutes of your time. I appreciate you turning out and getting involved in the party.